So now we know what our break even is. Now we can look at the 4 ways to grow our business. Now, the 4 ways to grow your business are: 1, to improve the average transaction value; 2, to increase the number of customers you've got; and 3, to increase the number of transactions with each customer. Now, this one, increase the average transaction value, I'll show you that an example as to why that's so important. These two together, if you think about increasing both of them, that's going to compound and increase, so the net gain is huge. And then the last one is a kind of cheat, which is improve your general business efficiencies. Now, obviously, each one within there you can break down into different, more detailed parts. So, for example, increasing the number of customers you've got, well, what are the steps behind that? We've got to improve our lead generation. We've got to then improve our conversion rate. We've got to then improve the different steps along there. Within improving the average transaction value, can we be more efficient with our processes? Can we buy better? Can we negotiate a better sales price? Can we negotiate a better purchase price from our suppliers? All these things. So you can break these things down, but if we focus on the top level, again, it gives us something to aim for and something to target. So let's look at a very simple profit and loss, gross profit. Sales of £100, cost of sales 70, a gross profit of 30. So a 30% margin. That means if they've got £3,000 of admin expenses they need to cover each month, they need to make 100 sales in order to break even. But what we sometimes see is, unfortunately, clients will discount in order to try and generate more revenue. And actually, it doesn't actually work out to more net profit. It might end up with more revenue in the top line, but actually end up working a lot harder to make the same amount of money. And it's quite sometimes hard to get your head around this, but when you see the numbers in the cold light of day, and we'll show you here, you'll see what impact it means. So a 10% decrease in sales price means that instead of £100, it's £90, but your cost of sales don't change. It's now £20 gross profit you're making, so your margins dropped down to 22%. Therefore, in order to make £3,000 worth of gross profit to cover your break-even point, you need to make 150 sales. That's an increase of 50%. So we've gone from making 100 sales a month at £100, need to make 150 sales at £90 a month. It's quite a big jump. Conversely, if we decide to increase our prices by 10%, again, our cost of sales are the same. We're now making £40 gross profit and a 36% margin. So in order to make £3,000 worth, we need to do 75 sales. So 25% less than it was at the normal price. Therefore, if you're working all the hours that God gives and you can't afford to take on any new members of staff, then increasing the price can be a win-win. Either you make extra profit that you can then hire new team members, or you lose 25% of your customers, but actually you're making the same amount of money and freed up a hell of a lot of time. So once we get that basis for the gross profit, we can then look at the 4 ways. Now again, each of these numbers are things that you should know. How many customers have you got, and how many transactions do you have with them each year? In this case, I've just plugged in 25 and 8, which gives us 200 transactions a year, and I've got the average sales price and variable costs from the break even earlier with that 30% margin. I've also put the last year's figures, the £900,000 sales, and I've got the admin cost of 147,000. So pre-depreciation, pre-tax, and pre-dividend profit of 122,000. So what if we can start to improve and increase these prices? Now, if I ask you if you can increase your sales price, 99% of people say, no, I couldn't possibly increase my prices. What if you just increased it by 1%? 4,500 to 4,545. That's not a huge jump. If someone's spending £4,500 with you, I don't think they'd notice another £45. But that's an extra £9,000 straight onto the bottom line. So a 1% increase on your sales price is almost a 7.5% increase in your net profit. You can see that jump here. What would 5% look like? 4.5 to 4,725. 225 quid might be a bit harder for some people to swallow. You might lose a couple of customers, but if you can manage to maintain everyone, £45,000 extra profit. That's an increase of 37% on the bottom line. So you can start to play about with these figures. You can start to think about, well, how could I justify a 5% increase? Maybe I need to include a guarantee. Maybe we need to improve our sales process. Maybe we just need to make sure that the team don't discount, or that they've got limits that they can go up to, the sales and marketing team, if they are discounting. Let's put in 2% at the moment, and let's assume that we can improve by 1% on our variable costs. Our margin has gone from 30% up to 32%. Most businesses gain and lose 10% of their customer base. So what if we, again, increase that by 1% and improve that by 1%? Then what if we increase this by 1% as well? So let's just go for 1% at the top here. So let's just improve everything by 1%. And then we've got 1% saving in our admin costs. Now, we might have some extra costs, or we might have some extra marketing costs in here in order to justify these extra spends. But I think the 1% and then the extra customers, we could do that without any extra spend. So 1% across all those areas is a £25,000 increase in profit, 21% overall. We're from 122,000 to 147. And all these small changes don't cost much and it can be easy to implement. It's just being able to step back and look at the numbers. And then we can have a look at what 2% looks like, or even 5%. So we'll go back to the 0%. Let's say the 5%, we get £45,000. Let's assume we lose 10% of our customers because of that. Still £13,500 better off. Still got a 10% increase, over 10% increase in our net profit. And that's with losing 10% of our customers. So once you start to think about what's behind these figures, then we can start to have a look and see how we can improve and influence each one of them.